Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's time for us to start. Please keep silent and we will kick off. Today we will depart a little bit from the topic we discussed last time, that is institutions, social capital, and we will revisit it at some next seminar. And today we are going to focus on a different thing, which is closely related to economics. I mean, if and when can market replace the functions of a state? And some functions that one believes are exclusively functions of the state. And I would like to ask you, if my understanding is incorrect, the Mundial World Cup will start at midnight. Opening ceremony at 22:15. It's not important. I don't think that anybody wants to see the opening ceremony. Opening ceremony is nothing. We will not vote on that. And the game will start exactly at midnight, and that's our deadline. We'll have to wrap up by that time. So, and in order to complete in 1 hour, it's not realistic, but 2 hours is quite a realistic deadline for us. But it will depend on everybody present. So look, functions and tasks that, as we see, are customary state functions. For instance, it's pensions, and it's, in contemporary society it is believed that the responsibility for retired persons, when people stopped making money, so that responsibility is with the state, and it's hard to imagine any other arrangement. At the same time, even before Otto von Bismarck, there were no pensions at all. So in historical terms, it was just 150 years ago than yesterday. And people coped with that problem on their own. And the responsibility to sustain the elderly people when they finish working was with their children. And 150 years ago, it was hard to believe that any other arrangement can take place. And transfer to the society, transfer to the market. I will speak about that later if there is some pricing mechanism. So that framework has its pros and cons. If we speak of pricing regulation, any state always has a temptation just to say that market does not work quite well in terms of pricing. So the pricing of various products is not substantiated, and it runs counter to the interests of the society. So it's the state that is supposed to regulate prices. In the post-Soviet era, the vivid example was in Belarus of Lukashenko. So if you keep track of the situation in Belarus, that Lukashenko regulation of prices led to the situation when they seriously think that some soft form of serfdom can be reimposed, reinstated. And that's a result when the state interferes with markets functioning. Prices are to be established on the basis of offer and supply ratio. But sometimes the state can do some adjustments to stop some prices from growing too fast and to stop other prices from falling too fast. And it leads to some disparities because no planning body, no state can be fully knowledgeable about the preferences of economic agents. And some prices turn out to be extensive, or others are, on the contrary, contracted. And Lukashenko, as former USSR leaders, prefer to keep agricultural product prices lower, so that food would not cost too much, and the government is not criticized by the population for expensive food products. But because of some economic laws, and since agricultural prices are lowered, it's not very beneficial to work in agriculture. So in some next phase and next step, the government has to make people do farming. So Lukashenko is imposing that kind of a serfdom when people engaged in farming will not be allowed to leave their farms without governor's permission and move to cities. So the use of market can also has its pros and cons. The late Nobel Prize winner, prominent economist Becker, wrote that when we are trying to decide if we can really transfer a social function to the market, which is regulated by the state currently, we need really to draw a comparison between pros and cons of that step. So the moment we transfer a function like that to the market, we should realize that in aggregate nobody would win, gain or lose something, because profits for others are costs for others. So again, in aggregate there is no change. It's just the fact that some people pay for something, others get it as profit. And the moment we hand over a function to the market, and what is market supposed to do, we get an opportunity to do so that a resource that was not subject to purchase and sale would go to those subjects who are mostly in need in that, or those who are prepared to pay the best price for that. And that brings us to the idea of economist Becker, saying that the state regulation of migration can be substituted for market regulation. So in a situation when Europe and the United States are the countries where many people who are not born in those countries would like to go to, the state imposes some regulations trying to filter those would-be immigrants, trying to allow for immigration only those whose professions are in need. So Becker also suggests that could be the function of the market, so that the right of residence in the United States can be valued. It's a very tentative amount, so it could be valued in 50,000 US dollars. While the migration, as we can see here in Russia, results from the delta of salary and wage. So the person hopes that the moment he comes from Tajikistan to Russia, to the United States, he will be able to be paid 3-4 times more. And the moment the price or value barrier is imposed for migration, it's exactly what the state is doing on the administrative level. So the moment this function is transferred to the market, then people can really value for themselves if that investment, say in those tentative $50,000, is worth paying, and to what extent that migrant, that person, will be able to pay back. So given his previous payment in the country of origin and the next in the next country.
Such is the mechanism of immigration regulation. A simpler situation is with traffic jams. When the roads are free and you can drive into downtown free of charge, traffic jams ensue. Well, nobody profits by the traffic jams, and there is no market here. There's no profit to be made on the traffic jams. So this is indeed a more of a burden rather than an opportunity for anybody, and everybody loses. Probably, with the exception of those who are traveling by helicopter or the specialized siren-equipped machines and cars, but these are certainly not the winners anyway. So the concessional fees and the fees for entering downtown, the toll roads, it is where we are surrendering this quasi-free resource to those operators, and to those who are ready to pay for it. The users who are ready to pay for it. A couple of more examples before we pass on to your work, to your contribution, and or even just one example is the example of a situation where market could hardly ever be accepted, where there is some moral prejudice, which is the body part and organ trade. When you think about a situation when somebody needs a kidney transplant, and these organs are in a great shortage because they can only be transplanted from the bodies of very fresh cadavers, and by definition there are fewer than those who need the transplant. I'm not sure about the statistics in Russia, but in the United States there are about 90,000 people need a kidney transplant, and about 6,000 per year are transplanted, about 4,000 die annually in the United States because of the inability to transplant the kidney, and they're on hemodialysis. So from the moral standpoint, it appears that the organ trade or commerce, when somebody sacrifices his kidney, this is not ever to be admitted. There can be terrible abuse, and there are always rumor in Russia when and there are horror stories in the news about some crimes resulting from this. But there are several examples in, I think, Pakistan, India, and one other Asiatic country where the mechanism of of organ trade was introduced, and it did not seem to have been to have originated. There is yet another great objection. Once we allow the market into this sphere, it happens so that 90,000 now require the actual transplant, and which means that the wealthy will survive and the rich will die, and the poor will die. And I think Pakistan and Sri Lanka and a couple of other countries have overcome this problem in the following way. The state continues to subsidize this situation, and it continues to pay for it, so that the state pays for it. And this is a limited scheme, and the monies are paid for by those who have given up their kidney. So these are just a few examples where the market should and must not be introduced or accepted. So the way I would propose to build up this session today would be somewhat different. What we will do now is that you will be subdivided into several groups. You can do it in an arbitrary way. You can the only condition is to have no less than 12 persons in each group. No less than 12, I said. And every group may take one topic. Medicine, organ transplantation, and I think that medicine, traffic jams, army, which is the private army or the mercenary army, or even private held immigration control. And you can think up of several more examples. So what is to be proposed? The group would have half an hour of time for work, and all these topics are not unilateral. Whatever we talk about, traffic jams, you can always think up of arguments that this could be state-run. The arguments for retaining it in absolute state monopoly, or else they can be, and there are no single-use solutions. There are no zero-sum games in these solutions. So each group is proposed to have several ways. There are several most powerful arguments to be made for one and the other. They should each group should weigh these, and when you get back here in half an hour, you have to name these arguments, and you have to think up as to which arguments can be more or less reasonable. So it is 20 to 10. Let us get back here at 20 past 10. Get back here for about 20 minutes or 30 minutes at maximum. And then each group, with each group being not more numerous than 12 people, and each group may pick up any of these topics. The topics may crisscross, And each group may pick up several topics. So at 10:20, you come back with the pros and cons and an opinion. Thank you. Well, could you have 12 elders? Self-organization.